Well, there's a case which I discuss in the book, a very important and I think an interesting case of an honor killing in Pakistan. And it's important because it draws attention to the fact that this is not a practice only engaged in by kind of rural peasants. The woman in the case that I discuss who was killed by her family, by somebody for her family, was a law student. Her mother was a gynecologist. Her father was the head of the Better Business Bureau, as it were, in his hometown. Her husband was from whom she was trying to divorce, which is why she was killed, was an MD. They were successful, modern, highly educated Pakistanis. She was killed in the office of her lawyer because her mother came with this man and he took out a gun and shot her in front of the lawyer. Now that makes it clear that in that context, and this was a decade ago, it makes it clear that in that context, these people, these respectable people, just didn't think it was dishonorable to murder your daughter in front of your lawyer, in front of her lawyer. The practice that that the lawyer was in was a very distinguished practice in Pakistan, headed by two sister women lawyers, one of whom was the head of the National Human Rights Organization. And she said immediately upon this exactly the right thing. Her name is Asma Jahangir. She said, what kind of honor is it to kill an unarmed woman, right? She didn't say, who cares about honor? She got the point, which I don't think would work. I don't think in a society that's full of people who care about honor, or khairat as they call it, that we could hope for any significant change by just attacking honor head on. What she said was, and that's a good question. I mean, how is it that a man who organizes the murder of his own daughter gets to be entitled to respect? Well, that's a complicated thing about the way things work in that particular honor system. An honor system, by the way, that was quite common around the world. You could find it in Italy 100 years ago. That's very much the same thing. That honor system needs shifting. When if you're going to shift it, you have first to insist on the wrongness of what it requires, but that's not hard to do. Murder is already illegal. The Quran prohibits it already, and Pakistan is a Muslim state, and so on. There are lots of reasons you can give why you shouldn't do it, but you also have to shift the honor system, and that's what they're doing by banging on the correct point, that it just doesn't make sense to think of it as honorable for a man to kill an unarmed woman. There's a website organized by some, it's called Arabs and Muslims Against Honor Killing, and at that website their slogan is no honor and honor killing, and I think that's absolutely right. So what's going on already is a shift. There are already people who see this. There are already people who say honor requires us not to murder these women, and I think as the dialogue goes on, and provided it's conducted respectfully across societies and within that society, where there are many people who agree with you and me about the wrongness of honor killing, as that dialogue goes on, there'll be this shift. And as more and more people come to identify this activity not with honor but dishonor, as in China with foot binding, there'll be a moment, a kind of tipping point, when it goes from being something you do in order to defend your honor to something which, if you do it, brings you shame. And that's, I'm famously in all my work more optimistic than many people. I'm a bit of a Pollyanna, but I think that that's what's happening already. I think there's a shift going on. I think they're making the right arguments, that it's wrong, it's illegal, it's un-Muslim, and that it's dishonorable.